I
why?
was pretty much the only one. Simply because I just don't think that politicians had anything to do with um really controlling COVID. At the end of the day, I mean, most people don't believe, and that's completely fine because I know trigger words like conspiracy theory kind of makes people not really dive into information, so they kind of get a little biased. But if you just check out Contagion, it's a movie that came out like I want to say almost 2002 or something like that. No, it might have been a little later. I think it was like 2012. But the whole point that I'm making is literally everything that happened in that movie, from someone eating a bat inside of a market in China, and that's what basically started the outbreak, to the fact that the CDC was the main advocates in the entire event, on top of the fact that they actually were practicing through a pandemic. So for a movie to actually come out and have everything that actually happened during that time seems a little bit like it was orchestrated. Not only that, but Agenda 21 is pretty big. I mean, me personally, I'm vegan, so I'm pretty heavy on studying food. So one of the main people that just kind of controls food right now, most people don't know, is Bill Gates. He has a product called Beyond Meat, not Beyond, excuse me, Impossible, which is supposed to be plant-based, but it's actually just a bunch of chemicals made in a laboratory. Well, my whole point from saying that is because he came out with Agenda 21, which was basically, him talking also the TED talk where he wanted to talk about depopulation. So all of these things kind of go hand in hand to me, to where blaming Trump for it is like, I don't know. I don't really see that.
So I feel you said a lot there, and there's quite a bit I want to unpack because I feel you kind of contradicted yourself in your statement. If we look at the movie Contagion, even Contagion promotes essentially a zoology crossover, essentially where animals, and I believe it was actually a bat that dropped a piece of food that a pig ate, and then the pig was bought from the wet market. Uh, China, especially the wet markets, have been warned for a very long time that this is a high possibility just because of sanitary reasons. Now, I'm not going to go too much in the conspiracy stuff that you talked about, but if we just look at Trump's response to COVID, we can compare it to other countries and see that there's a lot of things that he did poorly and that he failed to do. When it comes to finding out about COVID, the first reported case was at the end of December, and the first report Trump didn't initiate any action until March. So February is actually known as the lost month, where we can see countries like South Korea. South Korea actually commissioned their entire health organization within days of finding out about COVID, and then actually came up with a strategy plan of test, trace, and isolate. And because they came up with that effective plan, it actually removed a lot of bureaucratic red tape. They didn't experience a lockdown like the United States. If we look at Trump, he did not employ that strategy. He actually threw out a playbook left by the Obama administration because they had experience related to Zika. He miserably failed when it came to PPE. And then when it came to, again, removing that bureaucratic tape from the CDC as well as the FDA, he didn't do that as well.
Okay, you had a lot of points, and I'm gonna agree to disagree on a lot. Simply because I kind of see that you have like this formal sort of education. You don't really understand where I'm coming from. I think you really believe that COVID
Well,
was
I
something
think
that
you said
really,
you agree to disagree because I present facts and you present feelings.
What? Hold on. The facts are one, every time they were claiming that the hospitals were filled, I personally was not one that was afraid. I would walk to the hospital. There was no one at the hospital. I live in a city that is
That's
has over
anecdotal information.
200,000 people in it. Huh?
That's
This
anecdotal
is actually
information.
me.
Right? Do you
How
know
is
what
that
anecdotes are?
anecdotal if what I'm telling you is I'm telling you from experience,
That's what
actual
anecdotes are.
experience.
Anecdotes are personal experience, and personal experience doesn't negate data.
Yes, it does. If I can
No, it
tell, if I'm a
doesn't.
carpenter and I can tell you that
Because obviously,
a
with personal
particular door
experience, you
goes
can have
in
a
a way,
biases.
and there is no bias towards it. I didn't have a bias when I walked out. I didn't think, oh, uh, this was a conspiracy when I first walked out. This was me observing what was going on at the end of the day. Why was it so much road construction when everyone was in the house? That was all a setup. I mean,
So
regardless of whether you want
when
to believe it or not,
so I
you
recently
guys
bought
hate
a
Trump. Hold
new
on one
car.
second. One second. Let me finish my point. What you were talking about as far as Trump not responding, Trump was the first one to say, I'm banning China from coming here. Everyone
When did he
started
do that?
calling him racist
When
in
did
the
he do that?
beginning when it first
He did not
came to
do
the
that
news
until
that the
March
pandemic.
17th. He didn't do that until March 17th. And when he did that, he even had no instructions for people flying in and out of the country for when they actually came to an airport, what they were supposed to do. People were actually quarantined in airports without any kind of game plan, which helped spread COVID.
It didn't help spread anything at the end of the
It
day
did. It did.
because masks didn't help anything. And now you're not wearing a mask, and the rest of social society is not wearing a mask because they were told that it just magically went away. This is
That's
all a
incorrect
hoax.
as well.
It's not incorrect. You're not wearing a mask. Most of society is not wearing a
I'm in
mask.
my
And why are they
house.
not wearing a mask?
I'm in my
Because it
house by
disappeared?
myself. And I'm
Even if
also
you weren't,
vaccinated,
there
which if
are
we look at the
people.
beginning of COVID, vaccines didn't
I, I
exist.
don't I don't have a vaccine and I've never gotten COVID. I
That
never
doesn't
had a
disprove that the
chicken
vaccine is
pox. I've never
effective.
had a vaccine. The vaccine itself, the people on Fox News have come out and literally tried to apologize for the fact that the vaccine has been completely ineffective. Completely ineffective.
That's incorrect as well because Fox News actually had some of the most stringent requirements of employment when it came to the vaccine, while everyone at Fox News was discounting the efficacy, excuse me, of the vaccine. They were all vaccinated.
I don't think you understand the history of vaccinations. Vaccinations were never, for one, that's not a vaccination. A vaccination is supposed to be a an introduction to the actual disease itself or the virus itself. The COVID
There are
vaccination
different
is
types
not.
of vaccines.
It's definitely not. I know the history of the guy that actually
It is.
created it from scratching. So I don't understand how COVID
So
vaccination, which is,
do you think the polio vaccine was ineffective?
I don't have polio. I've never taken a polio vaccination.
Why do you think you don't, like you've never had polio?
The same reason why I don't have all diseases is because no disease is created or you can just attract like that. You have to actually destroy your body in
Do
order
you
for
think
diseases to
you
come.
don't have polio because the vaccine was so effective it eradicated polio?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. Not one way, shape, form, or fashion. See, the
Gotcha.
problem is that
What about
you're used
smallpox?
to Western. There is absolutely nothing that Western medicine has cured at all. The only people who have ever cured anything has been Eastern medicines, has been herbs, which all Western medicine has been taken from. No chemical can ever help your body because it is not balanced. That's just the bottom
So,
line. You can't cure yourself.
so
I
comparing vaccine
can.
to chemicals is inherently a not analogous is not a correct comparison. I
There
really
are
think you
no
should, like, bro,
medicines,
I'm
there
telling
are
you, you should
no
not go
vaccines
down this
or
road right now,
anything.
vaccines, because it's very clear that you don't know much.
No, it's clear that you listen. For one, I'm able to help people to actually cure diseases. Can you or have you? I have diabetes. I had a woman who I can get on right now on live who's had diabetes, who I helped cured.
Diabetes is not
Who
a
have
virus.
you helped cured? Tell
Diabetes
me
is not
who
a
have you
virus.
helped cured?
That's irrelevant to this
Regardless of whether
conversation.
diabetes is
Well,
a
because again, you're
virus or
making a
not.
false comparison. You're making a false comparison.
Is not a false comparison because of the
It is.
fact that you just don't
You're
know
comparing a
that
disease
all.
to a virus, which are two different things in two different lanes.
I know what a virus is. A virus isn't even living for
Right. And
one.
is
I know what a
diabetes a
disease
virus?
is.
Is diabetes a
You don't
virus?
know what a disease is. A disease is the same.
Is diabetes a
It
virus?
is the same thing. It's in different areas. You don't know how to cure it, so you don't really know
Is
what it is. I
diabetes
know
a
how to cure it,
virus?
so I know
Is
what it is.
diabetes a virus?
I didn't. I didn't know diabetes is not a virus. What are
Then
you
why are you
talking about?
comparing diabetes to viruses like COVID?
Because I'm comparing anything that is abnormal to the body that can be fixed with herbs as opposed to vaccines.
It really also depends on what type of
Vaccines
diabetes
don't
you have,
help
because
the body.
diabetes can manifest itself in many forms, either where your pancreas isn't producing insulin or your receptors don't recognize your insulin. Herbs does not make your pancreas work.
That's where you are completely uninformed. You've never seen these actual people that have been cured. You don't know about Dr. Sebi and how they arrested him for
You can't
curing
be no,
AIDS
this
in New
supposed to
York.
be a troll. Like,
How am I a troll? Because I'm telling you that Dr.
because
Sebi
I
actually was
just can't
arrested
believe
in
that
New York
someone I can't
for
believe
curing
that
AIDS.
someone has these opinions and is literally coming onto a live, not even arguing against the point, but making false comparisons, upholding anecdotal evidence, promoting conspiracy
Nah,
theories, and you think you're
this is
doing
the
something here.
typical
Like,
this
it's
is the
just, it's
typical
so
thing where
painful and
people
it's
who
so
have
scary.
mainstream information do not want to consider anything else because it will completely dismantle
No, it's
everything that
not
they
that I'm not
believe in
open to
because they
considering
have
new
nothing but
information.
lies to
It's
consider
that I have
themselves from.
critical thinking. And when you say things that go against science, it's just inherently
There's
invalid.
a lot that goes against science. White
Um,
supremacy goes against science.
White
However,
supremacy goes
people
against science. All right, all right.
absolutely,
Anything
but
else,
people
dude?
believe in it.
Anything else?
They completely believe in it, one way, shape, form, or fashion. You guys really believe that you created New York somehow? I mean, that's just a common thing.
Who
However,
is you
it's
guys?
not the truth.
Who is you guys?
You said what?
Who is you said you guys think you created New York? Who is you guys?
Americans, anyone who's in America who usually consider themselves to be at the head think that they created America. That's what white
Well, you
supremacy
said
is.
New York. You
No,
said New York.
New York, same thing. New York
New
is
York and
over a
America
thousand
are
years
the
old.
same thing. Okay, gotcha. Anything
Yeah,
else you
the
wanna?
city
Anything else you wanna
itself
talk about?
is
I feel the
over a
conversation's really
thousand years
digressed,
old.
and you haven't even addressed any of my Trump talking points.
No, at the end of the day, you're being like extremely dismissive, and it's difficult to talk to people when they're trying to condescend you. So it's completely fine.
I'm
I
not
understand how you people are.
condescending.
You
I'm
have
just
a blessed day.
challenging your opinion with facts, and all you bring to the table is feelings. And you, I think, are very dismissive of
That's
things I say by
what
saying we just
you
have to agree
call.
to
You're
disagree
saying
because
that
you
I
can't
have
provide another
actual
argument.
experience that I'm providing, and you're telling me that my experiences mean nothing.
I'm
It
saying that
doesn't
your
contradict
experience
anything.
doesn't invalidate data as well as actual facts. Because I just
If
recently
the
bought a new
data is
car.
made up, then
One
it is.
second. But you haven't substantiated that. So I recently just bought a new car and it is an Acura. And since I have bought that new car, I noticed there are more Acuras on the road. Does that mean that there were less Acuras on the road before I bought this car?
There is a scientific explanation as to why your mind would tell you that there is more Acuras on the road. That has nothing to do with
Exactly.
whether or not you
Exactly. So just
claim that
because
an
now I see
entire
that there's more
hospital
Acuras
is
does not mean
completely
that there's
full,
more
and then
Acura.
I
So
go to
that's
the
what I'm trying to
hospital and it's
present to you in terms
completely
of
empty,
anecdotal
that
evidence.
means that that
If you
data
would
was a lie.
The data
It's
in terms of
simple as that.
hospitals is reported by actual hospital administrations, and you saying I went to a hospital one time or a couple times doesn't disprove the experience that we as a nation had.
That's not what the nation experienced because there's other people
It,
who
it
can
very
vouch for the
much is.
same
Why? So
information.
you think our PPE shortage was a farce?
I don't think you realize that this country has been in bankruptcy since 1933
That's not my
and that
question. Was the
PPE
PPE shortage
is
a
a
farce?
fraud.
That is not my question.
Yes,
Was the PPE shortage a farce?
absolutely. I just
Then why
told
did
you.
Trump enact Project Airbridge?
You, like I said, for me to, I'm not going to sit here and educate you. You just don't get everything that I'm
I
telling you.
am
If you
not
don't know
asking
that
you
this
to
country
educate
has
me.
been
I am
bankrupt,
asking you to explain certain things that are reported and that are facts. Trump executed a plan called Project Airbridge to help with PPE shortage. So if there wasn't a PPE shortage, why did he execute this plan?
for people like you that believe that the money system is the way that it is. We're in debt. So
So what is
everyone,
Project Airbridge? What is Project Airbridge?
I have absolutely no idea. Why should I
Okay.
have to know
Okay.
what Project Airbridge is? That makes no
Because I think you
sense.
should
You're
know what
asking
you're
me about
talking
a
about if you have
specific
an
thing
opinion.
that
And I think
you're
it's very
researching.
clear that you don't. I'm going to
No,
save you a lot
that's
of
like me
embarrassment here.
asking
I
you
think men
about
like you kind
House
of have a
Joint
humiliation
Resolution
kink,
192.
and
You don't
I
know
certainly
nothing
don't want
about
to
House
fulfill that.
Joint Resolution
So thank you so
192.
much for
So
coming
you
in.
couldn't
I wish I could
possibly
say it was a
tell me
pleasure,
about
but I
House Joint
really hope you
Resolution
open a book
192
and
because you
actually
have
read with
no
some
idea.
critical thinking.
No, I
You
read a
have a
lot of
great
books.
day, dear.
You don't. You're just the average person.